They will face the LSU Tigers and head coach Jay Johnson in his first season coming over from Arizona, 34th tournament appearance and their 10th straight.
Now to the baseball bid. And I'm going to start with a simple question. We were, at least I was convinced that LSU had already locked up hosting. I was wrong. They will be going to Hattiesburg. But when you look at the potential path to Omaha, which is what we do this all for, right? That's what it's all about. Is LSU in a better spot as the 2 seed in Hattiesburg than they would have been to make it to Omaha if they had played host?
Well, the thing is, if they'd have been a 16 host, and that's what I was hoping, like, you don't want to be the 16 host because that plays into Tennessee, right? So I was thinking, well, if LSU, obviously to me, if you're playing in Baton Rouge in front of 11 or 12,000, it is an advantage. Having said that, this team, for whatever reason, T-Bob, you know that, they won 4 of their 5 road SEC series this year. And so they were much better on the road. They were like road warriors this year. And look, there were some big wins mixed in there, including a sweep of Vanderbilt, the last weekend of SEC play. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. The disappointing thing is, T-Bob, this is how crazy it is in the league. If LSU would have won one more conference game this year, whether that be in that 30-game regular season schedule or, in my opinion, if they would have beat Kentucky in the SEC tournament for a second time, they would have got that regional host. But that's how close it is. And I was hoping that the NCAA committee would take into account that LSU didn't play Barry, they didn't play Doty. They were 6 weeks without Gavin Dugas. And remember, when Barry got hurt originally, LSU was 14 in the RPI. When they were swept by Ole Miss at home, they fell all the way to 34 in the RPI. And I thought that they would take that into consideration. Clearly, they didn't. LSU is not a regional host. Having said that, where they are, I think it was really a pretty good draw. I mean, Southern Miss is a really good team, and we know that they can really pitch it. That's their strength. They got 2 real starters. They got 3 real bullpen guys down there. They're a really good team. And Kennesaw State, well, if you look at them, who LSU will match it up against first, they got a 6 ERA as a team. But don't be fooled by that. For one game, they can beat anybody because they do have 2 or 3 really good arms, a couple of bullpen arms, so they can beat you. So it's going to be a tough regional. They all are here. But I still like LSU's chances if they can come back and be offensively, especially if Barry is close to 100%, Doty's close to 100%. I like LSU's offense. Now, who they're going to pitch, I don't know. It's interesting to see how Jay Johnson wants to attack this. If he really goes in and tries to win it, I don't think he throws Mikael Hebert in game 1. I think he tries to get by with somebody else, maybe a Ty Floyd or a Blake Money, and then roll that bullpen in there, which has been the strength for LSU, and try to win game 1 and then bring Hilliard back against Southern Miss. But it's going to be interesting to see how he plays that.
Yeah, it will be interesting. And I think what else is interesting, Ben, is it being in Hattiesburg, right? I mean, generally when LSU has had to hit the road for regionals, they send them on the road, right? Like all over the West Coast. That's the Pacific Northwest. Like there is real opportunity here if LSU fans act quickly to pack out Hattiesburg with purple and gold. Just a 2-hour and 20-minute drive away. So not bad there. I do want to preview maybe this regional bit more or who they could potentially match up with. But before we do that, let's talk about Tennessee a little bit. The gorilla in the room, been 53-7, rolled through the SEC regular season and the SEC tournament. They've won 8 straight, 12 of 13. They have 8 players that have hit over 10 home runs. Their pitching records, 9-0, 8-1, 8-1, 7-1. You have very good perspective on the history of college baseball. Like and now Tennessee has to finish this fight. But as we enter the tournament, where does this Tennessee team stack up kind of against the all-time greats? And is it national championship or bust?
I think T-Bob, I've been around the game for a long time, and I have never seen a better team than this team, a more complete team. And I got to see them for the first time. I called one of their games, and it's swag, it's confidence, it's elite pitching. I mean, if you think about this, listen to this. I mean, they're third in the entire country in runs per game. They lead the entire country in home runs. They are the number 1 pitching staff in the entire country. In a year where everybody else's ERA went up, theirs went down. They're the only team in the country with an ERA that starts with a 2.
Wow.
I start looking at them and I go, okay, but there's a deficiency somewhere. There's got to be something that you can beat them. And the truth is, you look at those 3 things and they're outstanding. And then you go, well, okay, can they steal bases? Oh, yeah, by the way, they can run, too. They steal bases. And they play at a high level of defense, too, towards the top of that. So this is a team that I don't see a weak spot in them. I think, if you're going to bet money, and I know it's baseball. It's baseball where anything can happen. I get that. But this is the most dominating team that I maybe have ever seen in college baseball, like especially in Knoxville where they're going to have a regional and super regional. I don't see a scenario where Tennessee does not make it to the College World Series. And I think clearly they're the favorites, hands down, like it's not even close to winning. And if they don't win it this year, I think it's a huge upset.
And so with that in mind, right, like with that being the backdrop of how great this Tennessee team is, how did you feel about LSU's performance against them?
I think LSU was right there. I mean, look, you go back in that ball game, and there's a ball hit off the wall by Tennessee. We don't handle it very well in right field. We throw a wild pitch and give them a run early in the ball game. And then their right fielder makes an unbelievable play on the ball that was hit down the line, Collier Cranford, that diving catch on the right field line. If that ball drops in, there's 2 more runs to score right there, and it's a whole different ball game. So all in all, I think LSU played well. But Tennessee's the kind of team, you go back and look at their performances. I mean, one game it was a 2-2 ball game in the 8th, and they scored 8 runs in the 9th or 8th and 9th inning or something like that. And then they were a pretty close game against Florida in the championship game, but then they just seemed to pile on at the end. When you got to get 27 outs against Tennessee, it's very difficult because it's a veteran lineup, a lot of dudes, some older guys. I mean, Lipsius has been there. I think it's his 6th or 7th year on campus. They got another 6-year senior there. It's an old team, T-Bob, that has a really good approach to the plate. They can really bang it. As you mentioned, I think 8 of their 9 starters, double-digit home runs. Yeah. There are 2 first-rounders. The center fielder and right fielder are both first-rounders this year. Blake Tidwell's a first-rounder this year, one of their aces. And then they have 3 other first-rounders on the team in the future, some pitchers that are outstanding. So it's a powerhouse team. They can be beat. I don't know how you beat them. And look, when you win 29 games, and that's what they run against competition this year, it shows you how good they really are. And so I think it's theirs to lose. It's going to be interesting to see how it all stacks up.
Well, and from outhouse to penthouse, you mentioned Lipsius Ben. He was 7-21 in conference play. He was on that team that went 7-21 in conference play in 2017, and as you just alluded to, 29-5 this year for the Volunteers. Yeah, so he has seen the rise firsthand.
The job, whether you love him or hate him, Tony Vitello has. When he took over in 18, I think they won 12 conference games. It's been a steady climb where they won 20 last year and then 25 this year in conference play. And he's created a monster over there. And, I love Tony Vitello. He's your kind of guy and my kind of guy in some ways because when he's away from the field, he's very soft-spoken. He says all the right things. He's a good guy. But when he crosses the white line, he turns into a different dude. And his players take on that identity where I don't think they disrespect the opponent, but they're going to play with some swagger, and they're going to get you faced a little bit, and they're going to play their game. And they don't care what anybody else thinks about it. That's just what they're going to do. And so it's a team that has a ton of confidence and something to prove. Don't forget, they lost the SEC championship game last year. Yep. They had a bad taste in their mouth. They go to Omaha for the first time in a lot of years last year, and they go 0-2 in Omaha. They have something to prove this year. They're out for vengeance in a big way.
Well, and okay, Ben, last one here then. When you look at LSU's future and what it needs to do, again, I think this has been a hell of a year one from Jay Johnson. Now, the postseason will ultimately decide how we view it, but I think it's been a hell of a year up to this point. But this is year 5 for Tony Vitello. What does Jay Johnson, what does LSU most need to do to try to gain ground on the Tennessees of the world?
Well, I think it's got to start with your pitching, and we talked about this earlier. Although I will say this, I think the pitching has overperformed this year. Nobody thought LSU would have the 4th best ERA in conference play this year. Nobody thought that. But they did it kind of unconventional, which we knew that's what they were going to do. They did it really with a bullpen and not a true ace. I love Mikael Hilliard. I've said it 1,000 times. He brings a lot of experience, but he is not a real Friday night dude when it comes to stuff. But he does show you Friday night results from time to time. I love that kid. So I think the next step for Jay Johnson, that's what makes Tennessee special, right? It's a 4-headed monster down there in that rotation. They got 4 first-rounders they run out there on any given time. I think LSU is going to have to get some real aces in. I think the offense, if you're looking forward to next year, I think the offense is going to be fabulous. I mean, it's going to be, you know about Trey Morgan, Dylan Cruz is back, Josh Pearson is emerging as he's going to be a superstar in LSU, and others that they have. And I talked to a scout the other day, and they told me, and Hoover, and he said, listen, Jay Johnson has the number 1 recruiting class in the country coming in. He signed 14 real dudes. He said, Ben, if 7 of them show up to campus, if he gets half of those kids to show up to campus next year, he will still have the number 1 recruiting class in the country. That's how stacked that this recruit class is going to be. You factor that in with what's coming back, with a few guys I'm sure that will hit the transfer portal and come to LSU. I think Jay Johnson's team next year is going to look even better this year, and it's going to be more pitcher-heavy next year.
Absolutely love it. Ben McDonald, at Real Ben McDonald. Ben, what do you got coming up work-wise? Where can everybody find you over the next few weeks?
I am doing the Tennessee Regional. Unfortunately, I'm doing it from home. Only three crews will be on site for the 16 regionals. I'll be here at home doing it, but I'll have the Knoxville Regional. But I'll be keeping an eye on that Hattiesburg Regional for sure at LSU, and I'm hoping LSU fights their way through it, maybe matches up with Miami. That would be a hell of a super regional matchup.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, I like the Coral Gables matchup. We're going to go. Ben, thank you so much, man. And, hey, enjoy Top Gun night. You're going to love it.
All right, T-Bob. Take care.
At the Real Ben McDonald. All right, closing on hour 2 next.